This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
A potential Super Bowl preview is coming up in Week 16. We've got the Baltimore Ravens heading to San Francisco to take on the 49ers. We're going to break down that game and all other Week 16 key games by talking to Dr. Ed Feng, getting you ready to see what his numbers say about those key games, including Ravens versus 49ers and other bets he likes for this week at FanDuel Sportsbook. This is Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and FanDuel Research. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a managing editor of digital media for FanDuel Research, joined here as I am every Thursday by Dr. Ed Feng. You can find his work at thepowerrank.com and check him out on Twitter at thepowerranked. Thrilling slate of games coming up for this week. How you doing today?
I'm doing really well. I'm looking forward to another weekend with a lot of NFL games spaced out very nicely. Start tonight on Thursday night and then have all the Saturday games, have multiple Monday games, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, and the Thursday game this week is actually pretty good. Rams-Saints. I'm intrigued by that game just because I've been higher than I should be on the Saints most of this year. The spread is tightened to 3.5, which makes me feel a bit better about that game. And, being high on the Saints, then they're a miserable team to watch if you ever bet on them. Like, if you ever bet the Saints, just don't watch the game. Like, it's not worth it, believe me. But it should be a fun one Thursday and then a fun one to bookend things on Monday as well. Ravens versus 49ers. So honestly, it's not just that they're spaced out well, but it's also good games in most time slots too.
Right. I mean, especially with the end on Monday night is going to be particularly good Christmas Day.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll break down that game later on and get you ready for all games across Week 16 throughout the show for today. But first, a reminder to make sure you're subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. Our breakdown of that Thursday night game between the Rams and Saints is already up via Tom Vecchio, Primetime Tom, breaking down top props for that game. That is in the Covering the Spread podcast feed and over on FanDuel TV Plus. No show on Friday for this week because of the holidays, and then no show Monday as well. So this will be our only preview of Week 16 because we're taking some time off for the holidays. Back with you on Tuesday to give your first look NFL Week 17. Ed is with us next week on Wednesday and Thursday. We'll talk the college football semifinals coming up then. So make sure you're subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or over on Spotify. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There is a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, totals, and more. So visit FanDuel and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. First online real money wager only. $5 pregame moneyline wager required. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG in Colorado, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT-STEP to 53342 in Arizona, 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. 1-800-9-WITH in Indiana, 1-800-522-4700. Visit ksgamblinghelp.com in Kansas, 1-877-770-STOP in Louisiana. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland, 1-800-GAMBLER.net in West Virginia, 1-800-522-4700 in Wyoming. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text OPEN-Y in New York. Now, Ed, before I dig into the games, I want to talk about some perceptions we've had of a couple of teams this year, specifically Dallas and Miami, who happen to play each other this week, but how they can't beat the super stiff competition. I think that was kind of strengthened this week with the Bills throttling the Cowboys up in Buffalo. Both you and I run numbers that account for opposition. So my baseline assumption is that our numbers properly account for strength of schedule and stuff like that. But do you think those narratives about some teams struggling against elite level of competition are accurate, or is it just a narrative that stems from variance and small samples?
I think it stems from small sample size. I've definitely heard some of these ideas from people that I really respect and are better sports bettors than me, but I still don't really believe it. I look back at these teams, and the one commonality they seem to have is they both really struggled against Buffalo, which is a team we were writing off because of their record. Not me, but some people were writing off because of their record a couple of weeks ago. We know Buffalo is a very good team, and it just seems really odd to me that, so Dallas can't play against elite teams, and Buffalo's the elite team, but they weren't a couple weeks ago because of the turnovers. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me. So, I don't buy it.
I don't either. And I think that a lot of it stems from, like, for Dallas specifically, I think comes down to the elite teams are just bad matchups for them. And that's just coincidence. It's not they can't beat elite teams. It was that the Bills have a very good rushing offense, or did in that game. And then the other one they ping on the Cowboys is the 49ers. And, like, that's also an elite rushing offense. Yeah. And, like, that's the kind of situation where Dallas can really struggle. So, like, if they're facing, I don't know, like, if you put them up against the Chiefs, I think Dallas would play very well in that game, because the rushing offense for the Chiefs is pretty good, but it's not quite that level. And it's like, it's kind of the same thing we saw with, like, those Packers defenses a couple years ago, where, like, they were just really bad against the run, and it kind of, like, nullified everything that they had. So I think for me, it's more so about just poor meshing with the Cowboys. With the Dolphins, we haven't seen them face a lot of great teams recently. Like, they've had only a couple matchups against top 10 defenses so far this year, and it's been the Jets a couple of times. Their offense played pretty well in both those games. It was basically just that Bills game, to an extent the Chiefs game, but, like, that was kind of funky as well. So I'm on board with you, Ed. I think that it's more so just variance, and it's a small sample sport, but it's even smaller once you whittle it down to just looking at the elite teams, especially once you have some, like, selection bias with which teams you deem to be elite and which ones you don't.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just a note about Dallas, like, Dak has gone through these interesting 2 seasons where, in terms of the fraction of times he puts balls in dangerous situations, has been about the same. But picks last year, and has had really just not a lot this year. So I think Dallas is I guess hope, if you're a Dallas fan, is that he continues to get lucky with the turnovers.
I think that Dak last year is what's happened to Mahomes this year, where it's a lot of balls going off receivers' hands, and, like, maybe it's just because the receivers are trash, but it's probably just bad luck. So I think that
definitely some bad luck or some good luck for Dak this year, and we'll see how long that continues.
Absolutely. So we'll talk about that Dolphins versus Cowboys game here in just a bit. But let's begin things by talking about pretty fun game in the early slot on Sunday. That is the Lions at the Vikings, where right now the Lions are 3-point favorites. Total in this game has gone up a half point to 47. The Lions, Ed, are still even money to make the playoffs right now, despite some really rough games recently. Pretty critical game here as they take on the Lions. Do they have the juice to keep pace here with this Lions team, keep this game close, and potentially win it, or no?
We shall see. When I was watching Minnesota and Cincinnati this past week, and I was thinking about, I guess, and then the Detroit game right after that, I really thought I'd be betting Detroit in this spot. The idea is Detroit definitely has an elite pass offense, questionable on defense, but Minnesota, I thought that game was a little bit deceiving in terms of what we saw from Nick Mullins. There was a pick six that got negated by a penalty. I thought there was another ball that he threw right into the hands of a Cincinnati receiver that was dropped that also could have gone a long way the other direction. The data actually doesn't agree with that, because it says he had 2 bad balls and they both turned into interceptions. So I'm not exactly sure what happened with that second one, because I do think that was a legit play. But then, when you go back and look at the data, it's like, well, Mullins actually had 61% passing success rate, which is ridiculously good. Certainly showed there were certainly some good things for Nick Mullins in there as well. And traditionally he hasn't been awful in terms of putting the ball in dangerous positions. let's not give Detroit too much credit for beating Denver. We talked last week about how Denver is a fraud and a complete fraud, and don't get fooled by the fact they're almost a 7-point favorite against Bailey Zappi this week. So, I have Detroit by about 2.6 points. My model not showing any value here. As much as I'd like to bet Detroit on the road, I do think they get this done on the road, but probably not a lot of value. Gun to head I would certainly lean towards Detroit because I do think that is the right way to go. But, on looking at the data on Mullins, it was better than what I saw from him in the game.
Yeah, he the way I've described Nick Mullins this week is that he is Josh Allen minus the things that make Josh Allen good. Without being athletic. He's got chaos Josh Allen genes, but then doesn't have a good arm and isn't fast.
There you go. Okay.
It's frustrating to watch because I looked at the efficiency numbers too, and they were good. They were really good, like you said. But I thought he was going to get benched in that game for Jaren Hall at one point. Right. It was that bad. And I think that if it weren't for the Lions defense, their pass defense being as bad as it would be, maybe I would be on the Lions here as well. I've got the Lions minus 3.5 personally. So the market right between our two models sitting at 3 right now. I think that's appropriate. So I agree with that. The one thing that I do see in this game is potentially an under. Now it's to 47. I have 44.5 as the total here. Vikings defense has played pretty well. The Lions are okay, being a bit run heavy in the spots where they can run. So I could see an under potentially playing through in this game. But as far as the side goes, I think the market's pretty spot on here. But I think the under is intriguing at 47. Given 47 is a key number, you get a push on a key number right now. I think that could be the way to play this game if you were looking for action on it. But I think the other thing Ed is CJ Gardner-Johnson may be back. He's back at practice, I know, for Wednesday. So maybe he's back for this game. That'd be a big lift for this Lions secondary because Ed, they need it. They need all the help they can get back there right now.
Well, honestly, the personnel is a heck of a lot better than it's been the past 2 seasons.
Still, yes.
I do think I expect a little bit more. They were NFL average for a while this season. I do think there's a reasonable hope they get back there, but obviously having all hands on deck would certainly help.
And I think a lot of the reason they've dipped is the injuries. So getting guys like CJ Gardner-Johnson back would help quite a bit there. Let's talk now about that matchup between the Cowboys and the Dolphins. Right now, it is the Dolphins minus 1.5 at FanDuel Sportsbook. Total in this game is 50.5. Over is minus 105 on that. That total has come down a point throughout the day for today. And the Cowboys, they did flop last week, but they have been playing a really good football up to that point. Now, you talked a lot about this Dolphins defense and how good they've been since Jalen Ramsey came back. So do you see the Cowboys bouncing back here, or does that Dolphins defense continue to impress?
Right. I don't see a ton of value. I have Miami by 2 points in this game. I essentially am rating these two teams about the same. I think that makes a lot of sense. Let's talk about the Miami defense. I think they were looking better in whatever numbers I was citing last week. One of the things that has changed in my world is that now I apply my strength of schedule algorithm, but I actually make it specific to the quarterback. So because there's a difference between Daniel Jones and Tommy DeVito. When you do that, Miami's actually 29th in my passing success rate on defense. That's not good. You can look at a couple reasons. They weren't good against Tennessee and Will Levis. And then, they faced Wilson, but they also got the benefit of facing Tim Boyle in that previous matchup. And as bad as he was, you don't look good when you face Tim Boyle, right? You don't get a lot of credit for that. So I haven't broken it down into early, late season. I think that would be a little bit different, but I do think you kind of have to dock them. Yes, they've looked good, and yes, it's been better, but let's still keep in mind who they've had to play. So we'll see. Obviously Miami's offense is still great, and they're really, these are two really good teams. I think it's going to be a great game. Really don't have an opinion or a bet on it. But let's hold off on thinking the Miami defense is where we think it might be.
Yeah, the quarterbacks they faced recently are Aiden O'Connell, There was someone in there who was actually fine, if I recall. But then they faced Tim Boyle, like you said. They faced Will Levis, and Levis kind of shredded them, especially late in that game.
He shredded them.
Yeah.
That's not good, right?
And then they faced Zach Wilson, who got concussed, I think, on like the second play of the game. He stayed in for the rest of the half, but like I think he got concussed like right away. And then it was Trevor Siemian. And I love Trevor Siemian, the human being. Not a huge fan of Trevor Siemian, the quarterback. So like they faced a lot of really bad quarterback play recently. And once you account for that, like they haven't really done that well against like competent teams. Other than Sam Howell. Sam Howell was in the mix there too. That was the other quarterback in the stretch. So it's been Aiden O'Connell, Tim Boyle, Sam Howell, Will Levis, then a combo of concussed Zach Wilson and Trevor Siemian. Like, yeah, that's not a whole lot.
I had a good one for my numbers this weekend, Jim, because I actually wrote about Green Bay's defense and how they went from kind of bottomish mid to like worse than the NFL when you did this analysis.
Yeah.
And one of the big reasons is like, actually, no, I didn't end up throwing out the game with Brett Rippon. They got the Rams with Brett Rippon instead of Matt Stafford. And that, that kind of matters, kind of makes a difference.
A little bit.
And so that was a good one because they instantly got shredded by Tampa Bay. They also had, looking back at it, Tommy DeVito by far had his outlier performance against Green Bay, which you can say, oh, maybe he just played that one good game, but then, or maybe just Green Bay's defense is bad. And when you trade away Rasul Douglas and Jair Alexander is out, doesn't help at all. So, So anyways, I got fortunate that I wrote about Green Bay in the newsletter last week and, saying similar things about Miami. We'll see what happens against Dallas.
Yeah, it's a lot to, it could be that the Packers defense is bad or that Baker Mayfield is the best quarterback in the history of football. You choose, it's one of the other. So
Baker Mayfield, I think he has shown that he's, a perfectly adequate.
He should be a starter.
NFL average starter quarterback on a good year. And he's having a good year. He's not going to bring you to this. What if the Jets got him this offseason?
Yeah. I mean, if you give him Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, Baker can be fine. Like, and that's true for a lot of quarterbacks, but like, it's still something. So give him good infrastructure. If he's realistic about his salary, and they can actually support him with good players, then he can be fine. So it was fun to watch him shred a bit on Sunday while Cleveland's turning to Joe Flacco in order to try to turn their season around. Alrighty, Ed, let's talk about that banger to finish things off on Monday night. The Ravens at the 49ers right now. The 49ers are 5.5-point favorites. Total in this game is 46.5, and it's a decently large spread, given how good the Ravens are. But I show value in the 49ers here. Now, I saw your tweet a couple days ago saying that you actually show value on the Ravens. So I want you to talk me through what you're seeing here. Is the market overselling how good the Niners are? Or the Ravens just like sneakily very, very good and being underrated here? What's your view of this game, Ravens at 49ers?
Right. I think those were my public numbers that you were talking about. But, I tend to point out a prediction where my public numbers are pretty close to my best numbers. And so I have San Francisco by 4 in this game. I really like Baltimore as a football team. I really would like to bet them plus 5.5, but Zay Flowers and OBJ aren't practicing. They're questionable. Mark Andrews is out. Cluster injuries, that has to be worth at least a couple points that if all three of them are out. So, there's probably a world in which Flowers and OBJ are 100% by Monday night. And I would bet this game. But this really should be a good game. Baltimore's defense is second in my passing success rate adjusted for opponent. You can see how tough they were against Jacksonville. That was last week, right? So anyways, Baltimore's pass defense is really good. I really like both these teams. I actually have a future on San Francisco Baltimore Super Bowl, and the reason I bet this is not because I actually went and calculated some numbers, but the fact that my son came up to me and with a YouTube theory that the teams that make the Super Bowl have the same colors as in the Super Bowl logo. So he's like, yo, that means Baltimore and San Francisco are going to be playing in the Super Bowl. And this was at least a month ago when it was less obvious that these were the two best teams, at least based on how these are clearly the two best teams based on how they played this year. So he's like, yeah, can we put some money on that? And I was like, sure. I think they're both really good football teams. And so now my son is like a rabid Baltimore and San Francisco fan, which is hilarious.
Does he get a percentage of that wins?
He does.
Okay, good.
He does.
So say I'll be his agent if I need to be, like to enforce to make sure that he gets proper credit for this.
Yep. No. He will. He's pretty pumped.
Okay, well that's awesome. I have a Ravens plus 950 Super Bowl ticket that I feel pretty good about right now. I think they're plus 550 last time I checked. So
nice.
Do like that. Feel good about that. As far as the injuries go for the Ravens, Beckham did not practice again on Thursday. Zay Flowers was at practice, but then also their left tackle Ronnie Stanley is in concussion protocol. He was at practice, but in a red non-contact jersey. I assume that means he'll be limited on Thursday. If he gets in a limited practice on Thursday, I tend to assume he'll be cleared by Monday. That's kind of been the progression, is like you get in 2 days of practice and then you can be cleared. It's been very odd though, because if I'm putting in injury expectations on a Monday for the upcoming games, I've been assuming guys in concussion protocol will not play almost this entire year. But ever since that week where Brock Purdy cleared quickly, we've seen a lot of players get through protocol a lot faster than they have before, and it's messing up my process. So I'm annoyed by that, honestly, because if Stanley playing is part of why I'd value the Niners, it wasn't the entire reason. Or Stanley missing, I thought if he were going to be out, I would show value there because it's a big ding to the Ravens offense not have him. Lamar's sack rate is 1.5 percentage points higher when Stanley's off the field versus when he's on. And you're facing Nick Bosa, all these like really good pass rushers. So I'm a bit annoyed by that. I might need to tweak my process as far as guys. Concussion protocol, Michael Pittman, the same thing. So it looks like he's going to go this week too for Indianapolis. So I'm annoyed by that, honestly. I wish they would just keep things consistent so I can make these projections on a Monday. But it does help. I do like the over in this game too. It's gone up a point. It's 46.5 right now. Over is minus 115. The one issue with that is part of that is because I show value in the spread. And if I have the Niners covering 5.5, that implies more points are scored. So it makes sense that I'd show value in the total over as well. And if I'm a bit overselling the Niners here, that would imply that maybe a bit too high in the total too. But I think 46.5, the over there is pretty enticing. Do you like the Ravens enough to take the 5.5, or do the concerns about Beckham, Flowers, Stanley, and the cluster injuries worry you there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to wait. If this number is still 5.5 and Flowers and OBJ are going and Stanley's going, I'll bet that.
Okay. It's 5.5 minus 115 right now. That was minus 105 earlier this week. So it has been, looks like there's been some action on the Ravens side at FanDuel Sportsbook, but still at 5.5 as of right now, but should be a delightful game to watch on Monday. Any other spots where you see value across week number 16, Ed?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about Cleveland at Houston, and we have to go back to when we expected CJ Stroud to come off the concussion protocol. I sent this out to members, but the number, was Houston minus 2.5 at home, and that meant you essentially had to rate these two teams equal. So I've thrown out the prior on Houston, so I don't even consider what they've done because they've just been a lot better than we expected this preseason. Even when you do that, like I actually have Houston right at NFL average based on data from the current season, based on market. They've, the offense has been good. No, it's been very good for having a rookie quarterback, but it is, it's not an elite offense yet. When you look over the whole span of the season, I have them better than NFL average. I have the defense has gotten a lot better, but overall, you have to rate them at NFL average. Now, when you look at Cleveland, again, I'm thinking about now I'm telling you about the calculations that are specific to Joe Flacco, and he's actually been pretty good, which is a little bit of a surprise for the 38-year-old who couldn't do crap for the New York Jets last week. But, we're taking a data-based approach, and it's not like, you look at this, almost 44% passing success rate against the Chicago defense that had looked pretty good in the weeks before that has gotten healthy in the secondary. And so I combine so kind of the new model that when you have a quarterback that isn't who you expect at the start of the season is, you know, the quarterback adjusted passing success rate, yards per pass attempt, and then the market model is specific to quarterbacks too, right? So it'll tell you exactly what the market thinks about Cleveland. I actually have them as 4 points better than NFL average with Flacco. If you think that's too much, I probably agree with you. But you know, Cleveland is better than NFL average. And, you know, if you think about it, like they have the best defense in the NFL. No one's really going to argue about that. To get them down to NFL average, you really have to think Flacco and the offense is quite significantly below NFL average to get to a point where, you know, you want Houston, you can make that number Houston -2.5, right? And I just couldn't get there. You know, my model actually liked Cleveland favored with CJ Stroud. And so clearly got a little bit lucky here. Stroud's out. Looks like Case Keenum's going to play. This, you know, the number has moved to Cleveland -2.5. I don't know quite where to put the number now. You know, I think Case Keenum's a pretty good quarterback in terms of the realm of NFL backups. But anyways, earlier in this week, this was great. And I thought the analysis was solid, but you know, part of that was like, you know, Stroud might not play. And so there is a probability that this is going to come screaming towards Cleveland. And it did. So obviously not available anymore, but a game I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I think that game is super interesting just because I liked, similar to you, Ed, you liked the Brown side when Stroud is projected to go. I like the under when Stroud is projected to go because this Browns defense has been very good. They've been way less good on the road than they have been at home. But like they've been a very good defense once you adjust for schedule and things like that. So at 42.5, I took the under there. And then now when you take Stroud out, I've got this total at like 34 and it's at 40.5 right now, -120 on the under. So it's definitely, you know, still there, but like, I think that's the thing that surprised me the most. This total has not come down more. I know the Browns have been very pass heavy with Flacco in addition to having that high success rate, as you alluded to, like they've been very pass heavy, more pass heaviness is conducive to overs and Houston's pass defense is pretty bad, but like still it seems high to have this at 40.5 if we have Case Keenum starting for the Texans in this game.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see how it goes. For sure.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, that's all that we have here for today on Covering the Spread. But like I said, should be a very fun week in the NFL. Next week, 3 shows, Tuesday with Ryan Williams, Wednesday with Ed, and Thursday with Ed as well, talking college football to get you set for the semifinals on Wednesday and NFL Week 17 coming at you on Thursday. To get those shows as they are posted, make sure you're subscribed to Covering the Spread. Wherever you get your podcast, you can also find us on the FanDuel YouTube page and FanDuel TV Plus. Ed, what is going on for you this week at the Power Rank?
Yeah, check out my free sports betting email newsletter. You can get that at thepowerrank.com. 5 Nuggets Saturday. Try to get some bets from other people that I think are sharp. Was fortunate enough to have 2 winners last week from Ryan Noonan over at 4 for 4, and then Cleve TA, who is pretty well respected quantitative bettor. So yeah, check that out if you're looking for action on any given weekend. Check it out at thepowerrank.com.
All right. You can find Ed on Twitter at the Power Rank. Ed, happy holidays to you and happy holidays to all the listeners out there as well. Appreciate all of you for tuning in. You can find me on Twitter at Jim Sonnes. You can find me on Threads at Jim.Sonnes. You can find FanDuel Research on Twitter at FanDuel Research. Have a fantastic weekend, everyone. Be happy, be safe, be healthy, and we'll talk to you once again next week on Tuesday to get you ready for Week 17. This has been Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.